Welcome, 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 ladies and gentlemen. My name is Nash Crawford, the host here of the Crawfish Boil podcast, episode number 1, kicking it off today with some post-draft analysis, giving you a list of teams that I felt did a good job in the NBA draft this year, and a few who didn't quite do so much. Now, I'm not necessarily talking about a few busts that they could have drafted, because obviously they haven't even played in an NBA game, but just giving you some of my thoughts on the picks, the why did they take the players where they were, and overall what their team needed at the time of the draft. Starting in here with team number 1, I gotta go with the Charlotte Hornets, man. They drafted so well. Obviously, having that number 3 pick, they weren't going to be able to get an Anthony Edwards or a James Wiseman. I feel like those 1 and 2 picks were pretty solidified at the time. The Timberwolves didn't really need a LaMelo Ball. They have D'Angelo Russell, Karl Anthony Towns, and LaMelo Ball, obviously a ball-dominant player, looking to have the ball in his hands. LaMelo Ball comes in standing at 6'7", tremendous passer, one of the best passers, if not the best passer in the 2020 draft, a tremendous talent, star potential, and that's why I think it was a perfect fit for him to go to Charlotte, honestly. There is obviously some downside with his defense. It's been known since the dawn of time when LaMelo Ball became on the scene back in 2016 with that Chino Hills squad. He doesn't play very much defense. He doesn't go hard at the defensive end. The term cherry picker was often thrown around with him back in high school. But in Charlotte, I think they had to take LaMelo Ball here. He has that star potential, the ability of his passing game. He can work on his jump shot. He has a high motor, fitting into that 6'7" frame with the ability he has to dribble the ball down the court. His playmaking ability and overall game IQ is pretty high. One of the biggest things, though, that you're going to have to work on is his jump shot. I was watching some draft analysis on him pre-draft, and they were talking about the way he flicks his feet out and almost lands sideways, really forcing that thing up there. And honestly, I think that came from having to play varsity at such a young age. You know, he was obviously smaller than the rest of the competition, having to throw up some three-pointers from a deeper three-point line than he was used to, because he was pulling from the half-court lines and, you know, a couple feet inside of it, trying to make that impact because he couldn't get much going on the inside, being so short at the beginning of his career. But overall, just not only with LaMelo Ball, Vernon Carey, a value pick at 32, he was often a first-round talent talked about leading up to this draft, and the Hornets were able to snag him at 32. I think that there's absolutely nothing wrong with that pick. And they also get Grant Riller later on in that second round, and for the most part, I think the Hornets had an A to an A+ draft. They took the star potential player in LaMelo Ball. He can alter the franchise. He can be the man that they go to help bring that city, that whole team up to a playoff spot, and not just the 8th seed, try to get into some competition in the weaker East and really make a push to some deeper rounds. I don't think it'll be a next year thing. Obviously now post-draft, we just saw Gordon Hayward sign a 4-year, $120 million deal. I think him and LaMelo Ball have opportunities in a struggling city of basketball to really shine, show their worth, and make something out of what seems to be nothing in Charlotte for the last few years, especially once Kemba Walker left. The next team I have on my list is Dallas. They traded for Josh Richardson, a nice 3-and-D wing that Philadelphia had, but the Philadelphia mold just really never fit around him, giving up Seth Curry, a fan favorite, and I know Dallas loved him so much to bring him back after Portland that it's obviously going to hurt their just straight three-point ability. He was a spot-up shooter. He could get it in the transition, pull up from anywhere on the court with such a smooth stroke. But I think they're looking for Josh Richardson really for the defensive end. It kind of takes off some of the pressure on Luka Doncic to be the only perimeter defender, and Luka Doncic is not the best perimeter defender. That is not his game for sure. So Josh Richardson coming in, going to fill in either the 2 or 3, depending on what Dallas does with Tim Hardaway Jr. and how they're going to be able to play it out with that. And then drafting Josh Green at 18. I think that was a really good pick. He's an athletic wing out of Arizona, a 3-and-D presence that, again, relieves Luka Doncic of that defensive pressure on the wing, to really allow him to focus on his offensive game and the playmaking ability he has. I think Josh Green was a great pick. He's going to be able to come down on a transition 3, spot up in the corner, space the floor out for Luka to go to the paint, and really provide a knockdown three-point shot from the corner, and really just going to relieve, like I've said so much so far, to that defensive pressure for the Dallas Mavericks. They're a three-point shooting team. They had the best offensive rating in NBA history last season, but we saw them get bounced by the Clippers because they really couldn't defend much down late into the games, and that's what really Dallas needed. Getting Tyrell Terry at 31, a value pick. I mean, people have had him going in the first round. One of the best shooters out of Stanford at pick 31. I mean, he's going to be able to come in and make an immediate impact. Once they saw that they could get Tyler Terry at 31, I think that really sparked the Josh Richardson idea. They were able to get two guys in Josh Green and Tyrell Terry to fill in the spot-up shooting of Seth Curry, and then obviously bringing in Josh Richardson, another 3-and-D type player. It's going to be interesting to see what the Mavs can do with Luka Doncic and Kristaps back. We know that he won't be able to start at the very beginning of the year. We saw Willie Cauley-Stein pick up his option to come back to Dallas, and it's going to be a really interesting year for the Dallas Mavericks. I think that they have opportunities to make a deep run. 55-plus win season is what I'm really hoping for Dallas. I think the overall draft day for the Dallas Mavericks was solid. Next up on my list of good draft days, the Boston Celtics come in, snagging Aaron Nesmith at 14. One of, if not the best pick in the draft for the value that Aaron Nesmith can bring. Shot 52% from the three-point line over at Vanderbilt, and in a drill made 91 of 100 three-point attempts. The immediate shooter in Aaron Nesmith will definitely free up the paint for guys like Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum to go in, drive, and look for a kick out to the knockdown shooters that they have. Aaron Nesmith, Marcus Smart's three-point shot has really come to fruition. Looking at Kemba Walker, obviously the all-star signing from Charlotte, had a great year last year. A little tough playoff run, but looking to bounce back with the Celtics. They did just lose Gordon Hayward, so it will be interesting to see how Aaron Nesmith can fit into that lineup now. With the departure of Gordon Hayward to Charlotte, it will be interesting to see how the Celtics can utilize Aaron Nesmith and his three-point shot. Will they run Kemba Walker at the 1, with Jaylen Brown at the 2, Nesmith at the 3? He's a 6'6" frame, a bigger guy. Will they put him at the 2, Brown at the 3, Tatum at the 4? Will they look to bring Aaron Nesmith off the bench? What will Marcus Smart be doing? Will he be starting? The Celtics have so much pieces with this Aaron Nesmith pick coming in that it's going to be very interesting to see what Brad Stevens will figure out with the lineup. And this is not even to mention that they got Peyton Pritchard at 26, who at that pick was super surprising to me that he was available. The Pac-12 Player of the Year, the 4-year starter out of Oregon. Obviously a high IQ, being a college starter at a Pac-12 school for 4 years, averaging 41.5% from 3 with 20.5 points, 5.5 assists with 1.5 steals per game his senior year. I mean, Peyton Pritchard, he seems like a stereotypical player that would look to be doing well in college and then come to the NBA and, have a solid bench role, not get into much, but I think Pritchard at 26 is such a good value pick for what the Celtics were looking for. We have a backup point guard now. I think the 2 picks from the Boston Celtics were 2 of the best value picks that they had available. Peyton Pritchard at 26 was a great one, and Aaron Nesmith at 14 might be the best overall pick in the 2020 draft. I think the Philadelphia 76ers are next up on my list. Tyrese Maxey could be one of the biggest steals of the draft. We've seen guards out of Kentucky like Devin Booker, Jamal Murray, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and Tyler Hero all these past years come out of college and be very successful, make an immediate impact. We've seen him play in person. He has such a great defensive motor. He's been really working on his jump shot. I've seen the trainer come out and say he's telling Tyrese that he needs to make 1,200 shots a day. Not just attempt, but make those 1,200. He's getting up at a 4:45 time, getting in the gym at about 6:30, getting his work in early, and then comes back in the afternoon, does it. I think his motor is off the charts. I think that he has such high potential at such a late pick in the first round that it was almost too good to be true for Philadelphia to grab him. I really wanted to see my Celtics or the Dallas Mavericks go after him. But I think that Tyrese Maxey to Philly is great. But that's just the draft picks. Tyrese Maxey and Isaiah Joe out of Arkansas, one of the best shooters in the draft. And that's exactly what Philadelphia is trying to do, surround Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid with some shooters, because obviously we know Ben Simmons is not going to be taking a three-pointer anytime soon. So giving the relief of Ben to space out the floor, really drive to the paint, make something happen. He's his playmaking ability. I think Tyrese Maxey and Isaiah Joe around the perimeter could make a huge difference for Philadelphia headed into the playoffs of next year. Getting Danny Green, he get off the Al Horford contract, which is one of the worst contracts in the NBA. It did not work out for the experiments for Philadelphia. He did not play well. And then getting Danny Green, yes, he didn't have the best playoff run, and it was all over Twitter about his inability to shoot in the crunch time, and overall just not playing very well. But he does add a defensive aspect, and when he's hot, Danny Green can be one of the best shooters on the floor for Philadelphia. And I think that, and then obviously getting Seth Curry in the Mavs trade really just gives the Sixers the shooting that they were looking for. It gets off the Al Horford money. Danny Green's an inspiring with his $15 million contract this year, and I think it really sets them up well for a deep playoff run this year. And hopefully these draft picks with Maxey, Isaiah Joe, and then getting Seth Curry will keep Philadelphia in the running for a long time. I know that they were looking to try to get James Harden, but now after this draft day, I think that they're going to keep the core of Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. Daryl Morey really wants to see what those two can do in a better system under Doc Rivers, the head coach, and really just see what these three-point shooters around Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid can do to elevate those two. Next on my list, RJ Hampton at 24. I think it's a great pick, low risk, high reward. He has a tremendous upside with his athleticism and his motor. I saw him play back when he was at Little M before he went overseas. His game, he has so much aggression to everything he does and such passion to the game. It creates a huge spark for any team he's on, seeing the energy he can bring out onto the court. On the defensive end, he can get great chase down blocks. He has a high motor on the offensive end. Good IQ. He does often get careless with the ball, but in scenarios that he was in beforehand, he was the only one with the ball. He did everything, and I think going into a system like the Nuggets, where they, got Michael Porter Jr., we've seen him develop. He had a great playoff run, and we're going to be looking to see what Bol can do next year, and maybe a better role with Paul Millsap possibly departing, and Bol may be able to fill in the role of the backup center behind Nikola Jokic. It's going to be interesting to see what the Nuggets do with their plethora of young talent. Going back to RJ Hampton, I think him at 24, he didn't have the best season in the NBL, but that's not really what you're looking for in a player like RJ Hampton. Yes, he didn't have the best season, but you know what the game he can bring. They saw it all in high school, and his ability to match up with guys bigger than him, maybe a bit stronger, but he can go right at the teeth. It goes right to the lane. He has a great three-point shot, and I think he has lots of upside for someone that they could get at 24 who many thought would be in the top 20. Some had him in the top 17. I think it's going to be really interesting to see what they do with him. Jamal Murray, Gary Harris, see what they can do with him getting any minutes. Maybe he'll spend some time in the G League depending on how the lineup goes. And then Zeke Naji out of Arizona. I watched him play against USC. I remember like it was yesterday. He had such a good game. He's a 7-footer who can space the floor, has a three-point shot if he needs to, could also fill the role of a backup center behind Nikola Jokic. I think the piece of Bol for the Nuggets is really going to impact the overall lineup. We saw him in the bubble. He was put at the 3, Jokic was at the 1. And the Nuggets have so much opportunity to have almost a game-changing lineup, video game-esque lineup, that it's going to be interesting to see how they're able to use the 2 picks that they had in this year's draft, Michael Porter Jr. in the future, because he wants the ball more, but the 2 ball-dominant players, Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic, maybe they'll end up trading Michael Porter Jr. for some more capital, maybe a more veteran presence. The Nuggets are in such an interesting spot right now, and I think getting RJ Hampton and Zeke Naji only elevate their game and their potential to make a big splash in a trade, or have such bench depth that they can make another deep run in the playoffs like they did this past year. Now, looking at 2 teams that I feel they didn't draft poorly, it was just the players they took with where they were seated in the draft order, to me, just weren't necessarily the best picks that they could have made. That first team being the Chicago Bulls. I think Patrick Williams at number 4 is a little not far-fetched, but a little bit of a stretch. I think you could have gotten him in the 8 to 10 range. But Patrick Williams himself as a player, he came off the bench at Florida State, yes, but he has amazing upside. A 6'8" wing, defensive potential, can get to the basket, But I'm not really understanding why at 4, especially with, he's a 6'8" wing. Will they look to play him at the 3 with Levine, Markkanen, and Wendell Carter? Are they looking for a backup power forward behind Markkanen? Somebody that can, come in a defensive-heavy matchup? Somebody that can guard a Giannis Antetokounmpo? I don't know what the Bulls are trying to do. If they're trying to contend now, I just don't know about the pick. I think they could have maybe traded down from 4 to 8, picked up Patrick Williams there, and even got some more assets. Could have looked to really get anything out of that. Another draft pick in a later year, maybe another veteran presence, somebody else that can make an immediate impact. And I think Patrick Williams can do that, but his offensive game needs a little bit of work. His defense is there. I think his motor is there. He's a hard worker. But at 4, I don't know, especially with the fit in the system. Lauri Markkanen already on the team. Wendell Carter as well. Will they try to go big with him at 3, or will he come off the bench? It'll be a really interesting scenario to see what Billy Donovan can do in Chicago, especially if they do keep Zach LaVine. I know there's been talks about him trying to leave, him, going to get traded out. Dallas wasn't a destination. I don't know where that stands anymore, but it will be interesting to see what Chicago does now with Patrick Williams coming in. I think at 4, it was a stretch, but obviously Patrick Williams is a great player, a top 10 talent in this draft. Overall, though, it will be interesting to see what Chicago does with Patrick Williams. I think he's a good pick, but I don't know if I like him going number 4. And my second team on the questionable draft day list was the Suns. Yes, they get Chris Paul. They're looking to go into a playoff mode, more of a win-now opportunity with the older Chris Paul. We saw what he could do back in OKC and the things that he did for a team that was honestly trying to tank. That's why they had to get rid of him, not because he played bad, but just they were trying to tank, get the draft capital up. They took Jalen Smith at 10. I don't know how much I like that. There was Nesmith on the board as well as Devin Vassell at number 10. Are they picking the backup center behind Ayton at number 10? I don't know. There was a lot of holes on their team after the CP3 trade, obviously having to give up what they needed. Jalen Smith at 10. Is Aaron Baines now gone? Is he off the team? Who will they have, coming in at the 3? Will they try to sign somebody in free agency? I think that Devin Vassell would have been an amazing fit pick for the Phoenix Suns at 10. Tyrese Halliburton, he could have had to run a small ball, put, D-Book or Halliburton at the 3 and made a defensive impact there. Aaron Nesmith, you want another shooter to space out the floor for D-Book and DeAndre Ayton to really get their chemistry going and have a little 1-2. Just put a Nesmith around the perimeter. He knocks down about every three-pointer he shoots. As you could tell earlier when I was talking about the Celtics, he shot 52% in college from the three-point line. I just don't know. I think Jalen Smith is a good player. Jalen Smith at 10 to the Suns is definitely a questionable decision. Are they looking to maybe put him at the 4? I don't know what they're going to be able to do with DeAndre Ayton on the squad. And will this mean Aaron Baines is gone? What are they going to find some more people in free agency now that they had to give so much up for Chris Paul, which I think was a value trade. Obviously, I don't think the Suns have had a standout point guard since Steve Nash. So I think that was a great trade. But it's just what they lost and what they're getting out of the 10th pick, I'm just not entirely a fan of. I think they could have gone for a more wing-oriented player at 10. Kept Baines as a backup behind DeAndre Ayton. But Jalen Smith going 10, I think he has a lot of potential. He played well at Maryland, but I don't know about number 10. All right, thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. That was my opinion on the 2020 draft. This is obviously not talking any about the free agency badness that we saw in free agency day 1, the trades that have gone down, the rumors that are still going down from Woj and Shams. I got my Twitter notifications on. You should. Thank you so much again for listening, and that concludes episode number 1.